Hi, I'm Mimi Chan. Welcome to Culture Chat. Thanks for joining the conversation. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Culture Chat. Or should I say the Mimi and Greg show? Because ultimately, that's what these Friday episodes are. It is my weekly podcast with the one and only Greg Rucka. I am so grateful to Greg for his friendship and for taking the time to speak with me on a weekly basis. He's been on my show every week since the pandemic began, and it's truly been a privilege. Our conversations range from comics to politics, but we never run out of things to talk about. In this episode, we discuss the Biden-Harris ticket and our hopes for the future. Voting in the 2020 election is essential, so we encourage everyone to get out there and make a difference. Don't forget, our next book club choice is Greg's very own Atticus Kodiak novels. We are reading Critical Space, Patriot Acts, and The Walking Dead. So we would love some listener questions for the future episode. Please read along. We also answer a few listener questions at the end of the podcast, so keep those questions coming. For those that don't already know, Greg Rucka is a New York Times best-selling author of hundreds of comics and nearly 24 novels. He's also the writer for the hit film The Old Guard starring Charlize Theron, now available on Netflix. I'm loving these conversations and hope you are too. If you are, please rate my podcast on your platform of choice. You can also share it with others. Anyone, I would appreciate it. If you'd like to support with a donation and keep this podcast going, please visit my website or patreon.com and become a patron of the show. I would appreciate it. For comments or suggestions, email me at mimi@culturechatpodcast.com or reach out on social media at SifuMimiChan. Now on with the show. Hello, Greg Rucka.
How you doing, Mimi?
It's another lovely week with you.
The week after Circe. Yes.
That's right. I'm looking at my notes here and it says Greg Rucka 17, which means 18 because our +1 is our first one from Portland.
Right.
But that's pretty impressive. So
it's not bad. Let's see if we can get to 20 and then we'll and then we can call it a break. So.
Yes, we keep doing records, or we can, just like last week, we can take a break and revisit. But I will tell you that we're getting a lot of listener encouragement. People have been writing nice things and saying that we get them through the week and they look forward to us. Have listened multiple times to the same one that speaks to them. I was like, oh boy.
Mm.
I know. It's nice.
That's very nice to hear.
Isn't it?
It's very nice to hear.
Yeah, like really, really thoughtful things. Because, I've found, since I've been doing this show for a few years now and have, of course, been a teacher for a long time, like the very few times you actually hear something nice means that it's happening more. People just don't actually make the effort to tell you. So the fact that we're getting comments like that, I think is a really big deal. So thank you, listeners.
My mom was a journalist, and she used to say that the reason you wrote a letter to the editor back in the day, and this has changed, obviously with the interwebs and the ease with which, and one could argue the almost too much ease with which some everybody can voice their opinion, is that the popular wisdom in newsrooms was that for every letter to the editor they got, there were 100 people or so who felt the same way. And then that's not necessarily universally true, but it is an interesting calculus that the people who actually, because people are busy,
and distracted and
shy. Yes. In the main, we don't want to. For the most part, we are taught not to, quote unquote, impose ourselves on others, and the internet makes it easier to do that. But when people do reach out, it means a lot. I mean,
it does.
Before we got on the Zoom here, I was looking at Instagram and I had been tagged in a post, and it was a post by a young man in North Africa talking about how much it means to him to see Marwan, to see Joe in the Old Guard, that being a gay man in North Africa, with his curly hair and
Mm-hmm.
and having felt, and the danger of being out in his environment and so on, and that it was, um, that it was profoundly meaningful to him. And it's impossible for me to read something like that and not be moved, um, and not to be grateful. So, I mean, if people are finding some comfort in our rant and rave, then yeah, all right, more power to them. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna. I want to take that from them.
Absolutely. No, I'm affectionately calling them Rucka rants now. So
Uh, I'm sure they have been called less things as well, so that'll work.
well, I'm not the writer, so that's my only clever
No,
alliteration that you're going to get
don't
from
even,
me.
don't apologize. Don't apologize. It's as good as anything I could come up with. Probably better.
But
So,
it has been really nice, like that warm reception. And I mean, it's kind of like when you're on the sitcom and people feel like you're in their home with them, and there's like that
mm,
warmth and stuff. So it's been really cool to see, and the questions that we get have been nice as well, because I remember, post um submersion into the old guard questions that you were on literally like a record repeat for several weeks because of the pressers, and then of course
yeah.
all of the lovely individuals that have wanted to interview and of course talk about it. It was just so nice that your fans know you so well. They sent in all these other facets
Yeah,
of Greg.
we don't need to hear about that.
And it was nice because they're like, well, we've heard about this, and that's how much they do love you. So I appreciate you, of course, as you know, being on the show. So it's a lot of fun. And we do go on our little rants, but I think, like you said, and we always say, it's our self-care as well. And
Yeah.
no matter what, like even today, I know it's like things are piling up. I know deadlines are coming up for you, and it's always a bit of a
Yeah.
day, but this is kind of like exercise. Like I always feel better after, even if it's like, oh God, I have a
Yeah,
schedule.
no,
I always feel better after.
that's a really good analogy because it is like exercise, and now I feel really guilty that I haven't run in 2 days. Um,
Sorry.
but yeah, look, it's our self care as well. It's been a weird week, I mean, I got home a couple nights ago. I got my COVID test back and it was negative.
Right.
And then I
Hence
reached
you
out to
being
my
home now.
physician. Right. I reached out to my doctor. I said, so I got a test and it's negative and I've been self-isolating, and is it okay to go home? And she wrote back and said, well, the tests aren't always 100% accurate, especially from third party, blah, 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 blah. But it sounds like you've done everything and,
Hmm.
it should be okay. Um, so then, of course, I'm sitting here today going, God, my head hurts. And I mean, the video here.
Yes, you're the
Mimi and
paranoia.
I are on video for
Yes.
everybody who's just going
Yes.
audio. But I just did the wide eye, like that self-analysis we all do of going like, oh, my wrist hurts. Oh my God, it's COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty
And
much.
I know what it is. It's I had a lot of coffee this morning and I haven't eaten and I am probably a little dehydrated and I don't have corona. I know that, but the it's just the stress of the world.
Yeah.
That everything 4 months ago we took for granted. You sneezed and then it was like, no, that was a sneeze. Now it's a symptom.
Yes, I know. Well,
You know,
it's the same thing at my school. I have to have this posted sign, and it's like, you cannot be here if you're coughing, sneezing, sniffling, all these things. And it's like, we're in Florida. The seasonal allergies here are no
yeah. Guess
joke.
what?
And people are like, well, what about if I know I have asthma? And I'm like, oh, we're just going to do our best, everyone.
Yeah.
Just we distance anyway, and we're outside pretty much. But it is, you just feel so paranoid. You feel so hypersensitive and aware. And it is a really, really strange thing. I mean, there's not, a week or day that doesn't go by. Oscar and I wake up and we're like, wow, this is pretty real. It's still going on. This is pretty interesting. Like it's still surreal.
Yeah.
And and it continues to be so. But in any case, I know you are working on a lot of things. Is there anything that you're allowed to kind of share with deadlines and things like that, or things that we can look forward to, like Lazarus, for instance?
So actually, let's talk about Lazarus. And I don't think Michael would be offended or be upset with my honesty here. Um, so issue 5 has been pushed back. It was supposed to come out this month, and I guess we need to come up with a phrase or a term that describes the state of the negative impact on one's work that the last several months have created. And it's not simply the self-isolation COVID of it all. It's the COVID combined with the political nightmare, combined with the global issues, combined everything. And then, of course, family obligations. So Michael had a couple of things come up. And as he has put it, it's been murderously difficult to get work done. So the issue is now scheduled. I think we've got to have everything. I think we've got to have all the files into Image in mid-October. But I think the issue will not be out until end of October, beginning of November. And I may be wrong about it. Next time we talk, I'll have something more definite and more definitive. And I apologize for it. And and Michael apologizes for it. But to be honest, we can only apologize so much, and really with only a certain amount of penitence to it. You know what I mean? It's like, I genuinely am sorry it's late, but I don't know if you've looked outside lately.
Well, everything's been on hold, you know, so the courthouse was on hold. I've heard some horror stories of people that were in the middle of very controversial things and, everything has to stop. And there's people in abused homes in limbo, like serious stuff. So yes, we will survive waiting in anticipation and rereading past issues.
it is frustrating for us because we had hit everything, all of our deadlines for the previous 4. Which for us is pretty remarkable because our schedule and our ability to hold to schedule has not been shall we say, stellar. And, you know, and we were frankly we were very happy that we had been hitting these numbers, and then all of a sudden, so, you know, we're going to do what we can to right the ship, and we'll take it from there. And in the meantime, the next 5 issues of Black Magic will all be coming out monthly. And then there will be another hiatus as Nicola works on some other projects for DC. And then we'll be back for the next 5 and blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
So there's that.
So we're okay. There's still there's a lot of things that we can see. And at the same time, as long as you don't say, oh, we're not going to wrap Lazarus, we're quitting, then I'm satisfied. So listeners must be as well.
It is not over. And earlier today, I actually had a conference call with Alejandro and Leo about Old Guard stuff, and there's Old Guard news on the horizon, and hopefully we'll be able to talk about that more in the next couple of weeks. It's a weird place, you know, because so much of, and I've learned the hard way, you know, as much as I want to talk about things that are in development, I have encountered way too many incidences where they, for the best of intentions, they still end up collapsing. And I don't want to, I don't want to do that. I mean, in an ideal world, we don't solicit anything until the issue's in the can.
Yep.
But we don't have that luxury, unfortunately. So, you know, I mean, it's busy. And then, like I say, you know, Michael's dealing with it. I'm dealing with it. It is, God, I mean, it is Herculean. And I can only imagine. And I get to work from home, right? And it's difficult. I can't imagine how difficult it is for service providers, for, you know, people who are going into offices, for people who are working in stores and in retail. I read a friend of mine, Gareth, shared a tweet string from a medical provider in Kansas City talking about how overwhelmed they are currently at the moment. I mean, guys, it's just getting worse and worse. And, you know, the resolute, it is genuinely shameful, you know, when you look at like the global response to the pandemic and how other countries have done and what they have done, and the absolute dismal failing in the US. And it's a failing that comes entirely from leadership. I mean, it just comes from the top. It is entirely the result of the executive genuinely, for whatever reason or at whatever point they decided or read it as an opportunity, or that, you know, they looked at the pandemic as an opportunity. Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. It's how do we use this to our advantage? And it's like, your job is to preserve the life, safety, and welfare of the citizenry, guys. I mean, that's what governments do.
Yes, and that's why ours is failing.
Well, and you're manifestly doing the opposite, you know. And then the quote today that, you know, man, it's everywhere, you know, or Trump literally said out loud the thing he wasn't supposed to say, which is, I don't want to help the post office because, you know, I'll lose the election.
He actually admitted it. I know.
Yeah. It's like, motherfucker. I mean, there's no filter on this guy. And this is the thing, you know, from the beginning.
Yes.
He never once pretended to be anything that he isn't. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you know, we'll wrap around that. Let's talk about Kamala, because I saw your post.
Okay.
and I found that very moving.
Oh, thank you.
And you know, I mean, we can talk about, look, my daughter is following an Instagram account, and now Jen is following it too, called, I believe, Settle for Biden. Is that what it's called? Let me see here. It's called Settle for Biden. Okay, fine. Biden 2020. We're a grassroots group of ex-Sanders Warren supporters working to make Trump a one-term president. All content is original. And they're settleforbiden.org. And you know, I appreciate the wit in that. You know, and I've seen a couple times in the last week that the quote, you know, voting in an election is not like, what is it? It's like waiting for a bus, right? And you don't not take the bus if it won't take you exactly to where you want. You take it so it gets you as near as you can.
Exactly. So,
all right? You know?
So what's interesting about that is I completely agree. And I'm thinking, you know, this is great. This is what we need. More people involved, more people, whoever it will appeal to. On one hand, I wonder, does it dampen the message? So obviously he wasn't my first choice, but at the same time,
mine.
Yeah. At the same time, like, you know, my like Oscar likes to affectionately say, he would vote for a steaming pile of anything else versus what we're at. But I feel like to really get on board, it's kind of like, well, you know, and I think it was Jon Stewart and Ezra Kleins talked about it, which is, you know, we do need somebody who knows what loss is, who has empathy, who has been through kind of real life and is affected and has shown that side of him, and also Biden, you know,
and also who has an institutional memory, because one of the things that Trump and his cronies, one of the things that they have actively done is try to annihilate that.
Yeah.
Now I worry about I genuinely worry about the deep losses we've had throughout government in the positions that are civil service positions that got politicized.
Yeah.
And this is separate from DHS issues, like, and whether or not, you know, and I believe DHS should be dismantled. I believe that I was worried when it was proposed, and I remembered when it was proposed, that calling it Homeland Security, we have forgotten, just say the words, Homeland Security, right? Homeland in and of itself has fascistic overtones. It is not, it is not surprising that when the time came for it to be absolutely weaponized exactly. as an arm of the secret police, that's what it became. Mm-hmm. But, I've known people who are career, civil servants in the State Department, in the intelligence community. These are people who are gone now. They've left, right? That memory is left. That experience is left. Either they quit, or far more often they were driven out. Mm-hmm. And being able to have in the executive somebody who's like, I know how this works.
Right.
And the way it should work.
The proper system that should be in place. Hard to attain, but at least can get us in the right direction. Because
they're going to have to be, presuming a win, presuming everything. Mm-hmm. And yes, there are lots of presumptions. There is. It's not going to be a year of work or a term of work. We're talking about a generation that's going to have to rebuild what has been destroyed. I mean, it really is been that concerted and systemic an attack. That said, again, this bus is not going to drop me off in front of the house that I want to live in. But again, I'm thinking about things.
At least you're not going backwards.
That's exactly it. And I saw another one that basically was, it was Biden will sign a bill Bernie Sanders writes. Trump will not sign a bill Bernie Sanders writes. I mean, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, I think, honestly, that should the Biden-Harris ticket win, should they be able to, whenever it happens, assume their proper roles. One of the things that is clear in this moment, where there are still protests going on, even though the news is not that interested in covering it anymore, mm-hmm. Is that, look, extreme measures are going to have to be taken to solve the problems we face. You may not believe in a Green New Deal, but guess what? We're going to need one. I mean, that's it. It's just it. It's the way it is. We are going to have to do this, or else we all die. And it goes on. And I would much rather have, at any point, like I say, bus may not drop me off in front of my house, but at least I know this bus is full of people who will recognize science and facts in front of them.
Yes. And this is actually a question I'd wanted to ask you today, is you have kids that are voting age or really close to voting age. And
Elliot is. Dashel, much to her chagrin, is not.
Yes. But I mean, in that age group of the non-turnout, the ones that don't usually turn out, right? And so that is like an age group that everybody's always trying to go, okay, we need the young vote. We need the young vote. We need them to come out. We need the youth vote. So I was curious, I just feel like you have a good ear to ground. You have kids in that kind of age range, like is a good way to encourage that is things like this, like Settle for Biden. And these are probably ways that gets them enthused or involved or at least on board, because all I heard in 2016 was, I don't like either of them. Well, I don't whatever. And I'm like, well, why? And I try to talk to the students and then there was never an answer.
Right. But that was, again, and see, that's the thing. That's the propaganda feed. And also it comes out of, frankly, I would argue, a largely GOP driven attitude that has been you can't forget ever that where we are now did not happen by accident. This is the end stage result of 40 to 50 years of this. This started in the 80s with Reagan.
Yeah, this is very well planned.
Well, or at least there was malice aforethought, right?
Definitely malice
this
aforethought.
this idea that that you should have it, if you can't have it your way, you shouldn't have it anyway at all. The idea that in some way politics and governance is entirely a service industry, like going to the counter at the burger joint and saying, I want a double with cheese, hold the lettuce. And if they give you the lettuce, you say, this isn't what I want, and you send it back, or you never go there again. That's not how it works. It's never been how it works. And this, and it was very active, and one cannot, we have been so behind the propaganda game. This stuff was weaponized almost a decade ago, and has only become more sophisticated, and our ability to defend against it is impaired. And there have been studies saying that even when people know, right, those of us who are self-aware, we are as easily manipulated, right, that our knowledge of the manipulation does not actually shield us from being manipulated.
Yeah. Well, we also want confirmation bias. Like, we're all very, oh, well, I'm on board with this. This is what I appeal to. And
we respond to different vectors. Yeah. And I do think that, a large part, and we know now in the record's pretty clear on this, that what happened in 2016, in large part, there were these anti-Hillary movements that were entirely foreign operated.
Yep.
And made to look like they were domestic. And then people are like, well, I don't like either. The GOP and the right-wing media, and they are the right-wing media apparatus, had spent 24 years vilifying this woman in ways that make, the only reason that they did it is because she was a woman who was smart and had the temerity to use her position as first lady to actually implement policy.
Yeah, that was the problem. They were very threatened. She was too smart.
No, she had no business doing it, right? She had no business. Her job was to host fucking dinner parties. And look, I don't have, because I've heard it too, oh, there's no difference. It's like, well, you know what? I believe now we have manifestly proved there is.
I believe so too.
There is. And if you're going to tell me that there is no difference between a Biden presidency and a Trump presidency, you are deluding yourself. Right? You just are lying. If you think that your life will not be manifestly different under those administrations, you're not paying attention. Now, Biden's going to do shit that I disagree with. And he's going to say things that I disagree with. And he's going to piss me off. And he's going to engage in policies that I do not support. But when push comes to shove, I know that I'm going to agree with him more often than I'm going to disagree. And I have reason to believe that however self-serving he is, and all politicians are by definition self-serving, because they must be to keep their position, there is also a desire to serve. And man, I'll take it if there's a chance of me getting a Barack Obama appointment to the Supreme Court, or Secretary of State Obama, or whatnot. I got no problem with either of those things. I think it is just, the other thing it does is it justifies a disengagement when saying, well, they're both the same. They're both as bad. It's like, then what you have decided is you don't want to look anymore.
Yeah, that's putting the blinders on.
Yeah, you don't want to be engaged. And it's like, well, guess what? Again, that's your choice, but apathy is always a choice.
Yeah, but then never complain about anything.
Yeah.
Never ask for anything from, don't You should not be able to take advantage or
well,
benefit from all of this. You're not
exactly.
a part of the society, essentially.
That's exactly it. Your kids don't get school. You
Yes,
don't get to drive
exactly.
on roads.
Yeah.
And when your house burns down, do not call the fire department because you have decided you don't want to participate. It's the same thing with taxes, right? And people are like, I don't want to pay for this. I don't fucking have kids. It's like, you live in the goddamn society.
Yes.
You live in the society. It matters.
Yeah.
Well, I never use that service. It's like, but other members of your society do. The post office right now is the primary example of it. This is a vital national security infrastructure service that has been politicized, and has been politicized aggressively by the Republicans over the last 20, 25 years to say it doesn't make money. It's not supposed to make money.
I think you posted something like that. Like, it'd be like saying the Air Force.
Air Force should turn a profit.
Yeah.
It absolutely, under no circumstances, is obligated to be self-sustaining or self-sufficient. It would be great if it could. I'm not saying it shouldn't try to limit its costs. But I am saying that to imply that it is a for-profit service, that the government is running it as for-profit, okay, let's look at, is Social Security supposed to be for-profit? Never mind people who want to privatize it. Ignore
I
them,
was just going to say, right? They're all the ones that want to privatize anyway.
These are not for-profits. But like the military, they have in many ways become for-profit because the Air Force doesn't need to turn a profit, but everything that supports the Air Force now does. Right? And this is what Eisenhower warned about well over half a century ago. Right? This is, and it goes all the way back. It goes all the way back to Washington's, what's it called? When he left office, his farewell speech. The issues of partisan fighting. These things are all surrounded now and all caught up by, as we've discussed many times, late stage or end stage capitalism. And yeah, man. And Robert Reich is fond of saying, when Republicans scream about socialism, what they're saying is that socialism is for the rich. Right? Corporations benefit from socialism. That's what they want, but people shouldn't, right? And it's, money. I don't even know who the quote is attributed to, or if it's simply an aphorism. But money is the root of all evil, and God, but it is, And it's funny, speaking as a writer, right? When I sit down and I'm trying to come up with my antagonist, or I'm trying to come up with a plot, right? You invariably go, well, why do people do these things, right? Why does a bad guy do what they want? And invariably, they come back with the same reasons. It's either greed, right? They're either doing it for money, they're doing it for power, or they're doing it for an emotional need, right? Either revenge or love or whatnot, and those things all tie together. But at the end of the day, it's very hard to find a motivation for a bad actor in fiction that isn't one of these three things. Like, and this is one of the reasons why, like, when we look at Ra's al Ghul or whatnot, we go, he's such a great villain, is that it looks at first blush like it's none of those things. It looks like their adversarial relationship to Batman is built on something else. But at the end of the day, what it's really built on is power. Ra's is after power. Now, he may want the power for the best of all reasons, in his opinion.
But it's still power.
But it's still power.
Yeah.
And, thus in art, so in life. Right? So, yeah,
and you
long Greg ramble.
It's all good. I mean, you have a little bit of a habit of that as well, kind of writing the future of what's been going on, and it's a little bit crazy. But I did want to talk about the Biden Harris ticket and Harris because of course, yeah, I did make a post today. So if you listeners, you can go back and look, I'll link that. But I just felt that.
No, explain the relevance of the post. It's
Yes,
important.
yes, it is important. It is important. So I knew that he was going to pick a woman, and probably a woman of color. And I thought that was a powerful statement. And the reason I did the post, and I usually try to make it pretty relatable, because in the past I had my Sifu Mimi persona and I really never posted anything political. And then I met you, and that all went out the window. I'm just kidding. This actually started.
I ruined it for everyone.
No, well, what I felt was silence is complicit, and also that if you're not speaking out, you're part of the problem, right? As this world literally went up in flames, which is why I started this podcast. So this podcast specifically was for that venue. But in terms of that, I just really felt powerful about the fact that immediately all the news outlets are talking about her background and all this stuff, and you hear all the good things and you're hearing all the horrible things about her and all this stuff, and I just think, oh my god, so much noise. It's just so much noise. And so when I decided to post what I post, which is basically I put a picture of her and myself next to one another, and there's always this comparative thing, like what do you see, what is the commonality here? And most people would just go, oh well, they're both women. And I think without knowing me and my background, knowing that I actually have a Chinese Jamaican background and that we have so much more in common, there's so many layers there. And I felt like, how representative is that of actually being American? Because people always say to me, where are you from? No, well, what are you? And I always answer, I'm American. I was born in Boston. That's like the number one question I get. Like, well, no, I mean, where are your parents from? And I love to be smart ass about it. I'm like, well, my mom was born in Jamaica. And they're like, oh, and then they just look blank, So I love the fact that she looks the way she looks, I look the way I look, yet we have so much more deep rooted in common. But that's also the thread of being American. And we are all here. That is precisely it. And I really feel, to be truly American, this is what America does actually look like, not what people want it to look like, and what in their minds they feel it should look like. And so I'm not
even sure, that people want it to look like.
Some people do.
There is a small
segment want it to look a certain way. Yes.
But one of the things that I think has become more and more clear, when we talk about human rights, right? We talk about basic human rights. We talk about the right to exist and the right to survive and the right to flourish. And if you are a person who objects to any of those things for another human being, stop and think about it, right?
Yeah.
The American experiment is called what it is because it is the most broadly culturally, ethnically diverse amalgamation in the history of this planet. I mean, even the great, cities of antiquity didn't have the cultural exchange and diversity and depth and breadth. You can visit London, you can visit Paris, you can, name the city. But, and many of these wonderful, wonderful cities are wonderful, wonderful melting pots, but none of them are built on the premise of being a melting pot, right? Of being a place where all can be welcomed. That's coded into the DNA, which is why the idea of closing the borders and deciding who is really an American and kicking people out is so problematic, and why the growth of this tribalism and why the fomenting of it is so problematic. These are antithetical ideas to the American experience.
Mhm.
And that's not to say, and again, I am not whitewashing our history. This country is fucked up big time. We have
Definitely.
we have more crimes than you and I could list.
Yeah.
Um, but the failures do not invalidate the purity of the intent, nor the desire to see it succeed. And I think one of the things that in many ways is so sad about what we're living through now is that it feels to me at times that the hate that is being preached from from the executive is dressed in a patriotism,
Hmm.
but is in truth absolutely antithetical to that. It isn't patriotic, it's treasonous. And I'm not talking about criminal action.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the philosophy that's being promoted by these people is treasonous. It flies in the face of the principles. In fact, it absolutely and directly opposes them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is something that I have struggled with because I always said I was very proud to be American. My parents both struggled and fought to be here for a reason and to
Yeah.
raise, to have me here, be born, like have their families here. And so it's frustrating that the word patriotic or even the symbol of the American flag is now like somehow synonymous with something that I don't believe it represents.
Yeah.
And that is really sad, right? It's frustrating for those of us who still want to express to people, no, we're very American, we're very patriotic, we're very proud of our country, we're very sorry for the things that we definitely are doing wrong, will continue to do wrong and have done wrong in the past. It's not like we're perfect, but it's sad that someone like me especially could be seen as non-patriotic because of the things that I'm supporting or believing, and oh well, you're not patriotic or you're not American enough or any of those type of phrases that you hear all the time, right? And that's really frustrating, and
Yeah.
it's disappointing that that's where we're at in our culture.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking, and it's it's no fun being embarrassed to be an American right now.
Yeah.
And wanting to sort of apologize on the world stage and say, not all Americans,
I feel like I've been doing it for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, when the election was happening in 2016, I was in Australia, New Zealand, and people are like, "Wow, what's going on there?" And I was apologizing already. I go,
Yeah.
"Oh, well, he's not going to win. That's not my vote." And I was already apologizing. And then I had to continuously apologize because I do travel the world. And, Oscar and I both look very, very multicultural. So no one ever guesses. They always say we're Canadian, and we take that as a compliment because it means they think we're nice.
Yes. or at least polite.
Polite,
yes.
Right. They're like, oh, you must be from Canada. We're like, no, we're American. We're sorry. It's not fun. It's definitely not fun, but it doesn't make me any less proud to be American or less patriotic because I'm upset with the way things are. And I think that's the dissonance, where because I'm pissed off with the way government is going, I'm not patriotic. Mm-hmm. I was like, that's not
well, and that's the ACLU, one of the ACLU mottos, right? Dissent is patriotic.
Yeah.
And it is our obligation. The people are obligated to keep the government in check. That's why it's of the people, by the people, for the people. So the by part right now is damn right. And this goes back to that thing about, I'm not going to vote. It makes no difference. It's like, then you don't get to be by the people. Mm-hmm. You have just abdicated that. I don't have any patience for it right now.
Yeah.
This is as the saying goes, shit or get off the pot time. You either got to get out there and do it, or there's no point in any of it.
Yeah, no, this is not a time to be walking on eggshells and not sharing with people what you really feel and encouraging them to do quote unquote the right thing. I mean,
Yeah.
my mom 2 days ago, as soon as the announcement came out, she sent in mass email to her family and friends, and it was beautiful. I'm so proud of her. And it was, look, this is somebody who's Jamaican and Indian. We should feel proud as someone who represents us, no matter what you choose. I mean, go out and vote, but realize the America we fought, because most of her family and friends are all immigrants, like this is what we fought for. And it was this really, really great email. And she's just like immediately, like just trying to speak her truth to people she knows normally would vote for 45 and everything. So she's very bold in that way. But I do feel that way. Like now is not the time to go, well, let's hope that they make the right choice, because I'm past the point of someone being upset with me for not supporting the actions of the president right now. I'm way past. Yeah, no, I mean, I was past that in 2016. So after I got over my depression.
Yeah, I am. I am no longer at the agree to disagree. I passed that a long time ago.
Were you ever agree to disagree? I feel
as Michael, I think I've said it before, but Michael has said, "Gosh, I miss when I used to be able to argue with Republicans about policy."
Yeah.
And that's not what this is about anymore. It's not about policy. This is now about an ideology of hatred. Either you buy into the bullshit that says being anti-fascist makes you the enemy, which by definition means that fascism is good, right? Or you don't. But if you are ride or die with the GOP at this point, I think one needs to seriously reevaluate what they actually believe in, because I can understand, having come to being a member of the GOP for a number of reasons. But at the end of the day now, the party stands for one thing, and that is hatred. They are a party of hatred, not of governance right now. They're a party of rulership, not of governance. And they are a party of exclusion. And all of these things, to me, are anti-American. And, people say, oh, Democrats were pro-slave. It's like, yeah, guys. Doesn't mean the Republicans haven't changed. You know what I mean? It's like, that's the counter argument you never hear. The argument of like, oh, well, Democrats used to be this. And Republicans are this. It's like, yeah, guess what? The wheel turned.
Yes.
You guys are now the Nazis.
Drastically. Yeah. And that's I shared with you last time. I read the, Ibram Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist. And a lot of people said, well, I'm not racist. I'm like, but if you vote for policy, if you vote for politicians that put racist principles and put racist policies in effect, you are racist, because you are voting you are showing that with your vote and with your actions. So you may not spit on a person of color that walks by, but you might as well be, because you're doing that with your vote.
You are promoting and reinforcing the system that does it. Yeah, exactly, absolutely. And that's what it comes down to now. It's either you believe in science, either you believe in human rights and in granting human dignity, or you don't. That's really it. Either it's that, or the only thing that matters to you is profit that you will never see. So, God knows how it's going to go, but it's amazing. It's not amazing. It's hardly surprising that it took, the orange shit given less than, 24 hours to come out with this first racist, nasty, nasty woman comment.
Immediately. I know. I was pissed about that earlier today. I'm like, I'm not going to get to me.
But yeah, don't.
Exactly what he's trying to do.
Exactly. And
it's exactly what he does.
And it was what he had to do, because there was no other way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And again, so what are they peddling? They're going to peddle fear. Why are they peddling fear? Because they're scared. He's terrified. He knows he loses. Unless he cheats, he knows he loses.
Yeah,
the Republicans know they lose unless they cheat.
Yeah,
so
which
they're going to cheat.
They're going to cheat. Yeah. So we'll table that because I'm sure we'll have to still talk. We'll have stuff to talk about with that with next week. I did want to answer a couple listener questions before we wrapped up. Since we always pretend we're ending on a nice.
I tell you what, let's next week. Let's start with questions.
Okay, we'll start with questions next week. Well, we sort of did this one because Brad, who's our very loyal listener here, was like, name a good thing that happened this past week. And we kind of started a little bit on a good note. And, one of the things, of course, was like,
I think Kamala is absolutely a good thing that happened this week.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that is unquestionably, I get leery, the cover saying it's a historic pick and so on. And there's a piece of me that in the same way that people go like, oh my God, a normalized gay relationship between two guys in the old guard. Yeah. It's so groundbreaking. And I kind of want to be like, old news.
But
this should not be.
But it is.
But I'll take it.
And in the same way, you had the comment from North Africa come out. It's just good to feel represented. It's good to feel that, there's representation. So yes. Okay. So next question. Rumor has it Batwoman season 2 will feature Whisper as a villain. Thoughts there and how you feel about Arrow's depiction of Nyssa?
Never seen either. Hadn't heard it. Cannot comment. And don't think I've ever really received a check for the use of either. So make it that what you will.
Yeah. Okay. Noted.
I always felt like I was too young to do Whisper right when I wrote her and created her, but I've always had a great fondness for that character. She should be scary good.
Okay.
And would be a great adversary for Kate, or a Batwoman. Who isn't Kate Kane anymore, I guess. So
I can't keep up. All right. The next one is, what is your adult beverage of choice? Which I'm guessing you may have done on your recent podcast. I did get to listen.
I actually didn't. It's funny. I did not actually.
We're drinking. I thought that was.
I wasn't drinking. Yeah, I should have had myself a whiskey. My adult beverage of choice. I have to tell. Whoever it was who asked this, who is this? Do we have a name?
They have usernames, and it always confuses me.
The username
slightly.
was.
Oh dear, sorry. Now I got to open the Instagrams.
It's okay.
I snapshotted it though.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one. Because this one asks you questions. Whitney 93545. This one I think was the one that asked about the soccer cup. This is the same listener. Yes.
That was actually another good thing that happened this week. The Timbers won the MLS's back cup. So that was nice. My adult beverage of choice, which I actually have been eschewing of late. I have not had it in quite a while. Probably I have fallen in love with Michter's Sour Mash.
Oh.
And I had never been a sour mash drinker. I like rye. I like whiskey a lot. And I do not know what moved me to try this. I think maybe I've been enjoying Michter's rye and Michter's bourbon.
Okay.
And I had been given as a gift a fairly expensive bottle of Michter's by the head of Skydance, actually. And had enjoyed it, and I was like, well, let's see what their lower cost stuff is, because I can't write the checks this guy can write. And I found the sour mash, and oh my God, it makes me so happy.
Wow.
It is like, makes me so happy. I actually have to sort of stop myself and be like, I could drink a lot of it.
I see.
A lot of it. So.
Very good. Very good. Okay. So we'll save the rest of the questions for next time because I think some of them will take us down another rabbit hole, but we will start off with them and of course pick it up. We always have a lot to talk about. Oscar always says, what are you going to talk to Greg about? I'm like, I usually ask one question and then we just go.
I say hi, and then he won't shut up for 20 minutes.
No, that's not true.
It is true.
I said it's so easy to talk to Greg. It's like my favorite thing. I don't have to like go crazy. And
you don't have to over prep.
I don't have to over prep. Well, also we're on 17 in a row now, so it's not like, oh my gosh.
And we haven't run out of anything to talk about.
No, well, the world continues to provide content.
Yeah.
When we live in the world,
I guess that's what at 20 we can retitle it. It's Mimi and Greg's Weekend Review.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I think I'm going to start retitling them. But don't forget, listeners, we are reading the Kodiak stuff. So we're starting at Critical Space and going through to Walking Dead. And so in the near future, we're going to give it a few weeks because I'm a slow reader. Critical Space is not an audiobook, so I have to actually read that one.
Sorry.
So it's taking longer than normal for me. But once I get to Patriot Acts, it'll go much quicker.
Yeah, and then you got Patriot and Walking Dead
those are on audio. So listeners, keep reading or rereading for that matter. I know I'm late to the ball, but it's all good. So we will have lots of those type of questions for you in the near future. So
excellent.
Thank you so much, my dear.
It's
lovely to talk to you. Say hi to the family.
Oscar. I will, and you to yours. Give everybody my best. Okay?
Will do. That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to Culture Chat and hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please subscribe and rate my podcast. Feel free to leave me suggestions or send an email to mimi@culturechatpodcast.com or follow me on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook.